on investors' minds is the future of Fed policy and whether we will actually see a cut at the Fed's final meeting of the year, which is just about a month away. Yahoo Finance's Fed correspondent Jennifer Schonberger is here with more. Jen.
Hey, Miles, a rate cut in December is becoming increasingly doubtful as more Fed officials are expressing caution about cutting rates further. Today, Kansas City Fed President Jeff Schmid, the latest, to reiterate that he believes inflation is too high right now and that he thinks that going into the December meeting, there's a chance, he suggested, that he could hold rates steady after dissenting at the last policy meeting where he also preferred to hold rates steady. He doesn't think that cutting rates further could help boost the job market because the stresses that he is seeing there, he believes, are more structural, long-term issues such as technology and changes in immigration policy, though he said, quote, rate cuts could have longer lasting effects on inflation as our commitment to our 2% objective increasingly comes into question. This was my rationale for dissenting, he says, against the rate cut at the last meeting, and one that continues to guide my thoughts as I head into the meeting in December. Schmid's comments further accentuating the divide that we're seeing right now within the Fed as there is a growing chorus of more officials looking to hold rates steady. Take a look at this chart and you'll see how the line is really being redrawn for what the median expectation was for 3 rate cuts this year. Against a December rate cut at this point looks to be Boston Fed's Collins, St. Louis's Musalem, and Kansas City's Schmid. Undecided but seemingly leading against is Chicago's Goolsbee. He told me a couple weeks ago that the bar for cutting is much higher as inflation has been trending in the wrong direction. And on the flip side, Waller, Myron, and Bowman are in favor of a rate cut. And then we have the clump who could go in either direction, including Fed Chair Powell. But either way that you slice this, it looks like we're going to see dissents on either side, 3 to 4 if the Fed decides to cut. And then if the Fed decides to hold steady, the potential for 3 dissents there. And if you take a look at traders and what they're pricing in as far as the odds of a December rate cut, looks like those chances are dwindling right now for the month of December. Odds down to about 45%. That's down from about a month ago when the odds were 94%. In fact, I think it was as low as nearly 40% earlier today. And quite frankly, Miles, I mean, Fed Chair Powell stood at the podium about 2 weeks ago and told the markets in no uncertain terms that a rate cut in December is not a foregone conclusion. In fact, far from it. Back to you.
And speaking of, Jen, that where the Fed is breaking down and what it might look like 6 months from now, we got news earlier this week that Atlanta Fed President Raphael Bostic will be retiring early next year. Another opportunity it is looking like for the president to reshape the Fed. And again, this is still without having yet known, we don't yet know, who Trump will nominate to succeed Chair Powell come May.
That's right. There are a lot of factors that could change and shape the Fed as far as the players next year. As you mentioned this week, Atlanta Fed President Raphael Bostic going to be stepping down next February. That was when his term was set to expire anyway. And he is on record for penciling in just 1 rate cut this year. So depending on how the board of the Atlanta Fed decides, or who the board of the Atlanta Fed decides to replace him with, we could see a potential turn in that chair. Granted, the Atlanta Fed does not have a vote on the FOMC until 2027. Nevertheless, they could still influence the direction of the committee. Also, as you mentioned, we're going to see a new Fed chair put in place when Chair Powell's term ends in May. And it's clear the president is looking for somebody with a dovish position. And so that person is going to have a strong amount of influence over the committee. Another wild card is the Supreme Court ruling in January over whether the president has authority to fire Lisa Cook. If the high court votes in favor of the president, then that could be another potential opening for the president to fill the Fed with those who are more dovish. At the same time, we know that there are 4 4 regional Fed bank members who rotate every year. So 4 will rotate off the committee from this year, and 4 will rotate on next year. And if you look at who's coming on, guess what? They look hawkish as well. So we could still see a divided Fed next year, but still a lot of question marks outstanding right now.
All right, we'll leave it there. Jennifer Schonberger, thanks so much.